Chinese contemporary art promoter, American Chinese cultural relationship builder. In one word, could you sum up who you are?
Dynamic. I want to create my own noise and create my own direction.
You're from a family of lawyers. Where did you acquire this passion for art?
I have a very large family, and many of them are art collectors and connoisseurs, and I've always been exposed to the arts and have been exposed to the arts since I was very young.
So growing up, what was your idea of having a career in art? Did you want to be an artist yourself?
Oh, absolutely not. My
Why not?
artistic talent is limited, to say the least. And I've never had any aspiration to be an artist.
So you went to law school, and so you're on the track of being a lawyer, but how did you end up opening the gallery?
It was kind of a natural thing for me, as we discussed before. Both my parents are lawyers, and I really do have a kind of predisposition towards understanding the law, and I am still to this day probably very good at analyzing certain legal issues and doing certain even paperwork or looking at litigation. It was a natural course for me to take, but quickly in law school I discovered that it wasn't my passion, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do as a career, and it's not something that fulfills me on a daily basis.
I met Eli in college at Madison, Wisconsin, 1996, 97. He probably had similar parents to mine, which was also educated and also one to expose their children with a bit of freedom, in where they were raised, but also to serve the rest of the world. And in college, at that point, I think that's what can draw you to a lot of other people is some of those types of similarities, because at that point, really, what you've been shown is a little bit what you see in your local community, but especially what your parents show you as well.
Have you been to China before you opened this gallery?
Yes.
You have?
Yes, I have. And I lived in Hong Kong for a period of time.
Is it because your passion for Chinese art that you went to China, where you went to China first and you developed this passion?
It's the latter. I went to China first. I first went to China when I was probably 13 years old.
Wow.
So any passion that I may have had for the art or for Chinese art specifically, it certainly wasn't matured by then. But I learned a lot from traveling, not just in China, but around Asia. And when I lived there, I certainly, my parents would generally take me to kind of the cultural hotspots of whatever city we were in, and I was exposed to it at a relatively early age.
I was coming to the shows, I was coming to the gallery, I was a friend supporting another friend's passion and career. And but when I went to Beijing the first time, I think it was 3 years ago, and was able to actually go into the studios, and some of the artists I had met here at the shows, some of the artists I had not. I mean, that's when I saw, when I really started to fall in love with the work myself personally. I'm a bit of a collector, really through this process. I was fascinated with Beijing. I talk about Beijing all the time. Right, so everybody who goes, they come back. They go to you go to work, you go talk to your family, you go talk to your friends. You're not only talking about the art, as you say. You're not just talking about the stuff that your friend's selling. You're talking about the whole experience of it. What's behind it. Right back to, I was in these artists' studios watching them. They were making cappuccinos for me, and I was able to get one of these pieces off their wall that was barely, flat and straight from the original parchment that was unrolled and that they had done this piece on.
So compare Chinese modern art with other genres, other category. Does it move you specifically? What is Chinese contemporary art to you as a person, as an art lover?
Chinese contemporary art is so much to me, and it's such a large part of my life. I'm surrounded by it, whether I'm at home or at my gallery or often at friends' house or families' houses. on when I'm traveling for business. I mean, I read every day, almost anything that comes out about the subject. But it means so much to me. For me, at least, I'm able to see more of what's going on within a piece of artwork, if it's from a Chinese contemporary artist, usually, than say a Western living artist.
But your first exhibition in this gallery was Alexander Calder.
Right.
It's not Chinese,
Right.
not at all. But
right.
you always had, sounds like you always had this idea before you opened this gallery that you wanted to represent Chinese contemporary art.
Well, although the first exhibition was referencing Alexander Calder, where we had major works by Calder, Miro, Picasso, a lot of artists in that generation, and then contemporary artists that were influenced by Calder, really, by his kinetic sculpture. Calder is a terrific artist. I believe.
I like him.
I believe strongly that he's probably the most influential American sculptor of the 20th century. And it was a terrific show to have here, and the contemporary artists that we exhibited alongside Calder and his contemporaries were terrific. But even while that show was being planned, well before the gallery opened, there was another show. The subsequent exhibition was in the works as well, and it wasn't as though Calder was planned and then the next show was planned. So I had always, well in advance of the gallery opening, planned the second show to be Chinese contemporary photography. And
how did it do? Did you sell a lot?
It did terrific, yeah. And we, it's not just about selling, but in terms of promoting the artists that we were showing, we had a great reception. We received some terrific press attention and developed a number of new clients. We were a new gallery who had a passion either previously or a newfound passion for Chinese art. I'd say that everything came together with that second exhibition. Even though in scale and certainly in value, it wasn't anywhere near the production that the first exhibition was. Logistically, it was. It was a very difficult thing to put together. I knew before I opened the gallery that I wanted to have a strong focus on Chinese art. I didn't decide to do it primarily or exclusively until I learned, and I learned very quickly, how difficult it is to do business in China, to work out logistics for every show, to deal with every aspect of representing Chinese art in New York. It just adds many dimensions and is so much more complicated than one would think. And I became aware, and it was clear to me, that in order to do it on the highest level, a level where my artists are going to be happy, my clients are going to be happy, and my gallery is going to be happy, I had to really focus on it and hire and build a team that understands Chinese art.
Well, I'm from China. I was born and raised, so I can imagine how difficult that you're describing for an American businessman. You're a businessman to go
Right.
to China
Yeah.
and find artists and talk to them and bring the work over here and all the logistics.
And it's completely, totally different than dealing with Western artists. And almost every aspect of it is. Certainly it's very important to go often, and I go to Beijing maybe 5 times a year. But you need FaceTime with your artists, and you have to visit their studios. It's something, to be quite honest with you, I learned on the job, and it was a difficult first couple of years in kind of acclimating myself to do business in China.
He wasn't an intern at another Chinese art gallery before. He didn't have a whole lot of exposure necessarily, or environment exposure. So I just think it's amazing how good he has gotten. It's something that he has really done a lot of self-teaching in. The art is amazing. It's very unique. I find a great blend of skill in really diverse materials, technical skills that I feel like I don't see typically even in the other contemporary American and Western European galleries and museums here. So I try to portray what I think will be like a very diverse experience in medias, in expressionism. Certainly New Yorkers, I would say no, but Americans more and more every day that our economies, our worlds are very mixed. I mean, they have been for a long time indirectly, economically, and it's also a great way to have like a window of what young people, young artists, but young really brilliant, imaginative people are seeing through their eyes on the other side of this sort of big, almost, I think a lot of Americans just kind of see China as like, a sort of an unknown entity that has like stuff that it produces and stuff we do, but it's really a window into the young cultures, the young imaginations, and the young and new eyes of how are they seeing this relationship that we have as well, because a lot of that comes through in the art. A lot of the art here is also talking about the interactions with the West, with America in particular, and with how they perceive their own cultural revolutions and social and economic revolutions are going on in China that we can read about in Wall Street Journal or New York Times and say, hey, come to this gallery and see another perspective of that dissection.
How is it like running a gallery? What's the most enjoyable part and what's the most challenging?
I really enjoy when a relationship works out and every side is happy, and I enjoy when I make a deal with somebody, for example, and really it turns out that for the long term they're very happy and the artist is happy. That makes me feel good, and I know that for the past 6 years, one of the reasons why my gallery is successful is that we've done extraordinary by people with whatever they have acquired here, and that really makes me happy.
How about the most challenging?
The most challenging part about this for me is kind of being 24/7. I almost have no free time. I have to take calls all the time. Having a busy gallery is one thing. Having a busy gallery that's busy in China and America is another, because it's 12 hours later there. And that means that throughout the night, I'm inundated with business as well.
You're obviously a very big name in the Chinese contemporary art industry here and in China. What do you think that in the past 6 years since you opened this gallery, what role have you played in promoting the market? Because obviously has changed
right.
in the past 6 years. What do you think that you have done what's the force behind this move that you have controlled, you have done?
I'd say, hands down, my gallery has done more than any other commercial gallery in America to promote Chinese contemporary art over the past 6 years here. And that is a huge accomplishment. It's not an easy thing to do, and that is also something I'm very, very proud of. And these artists absolutely deserve terrific representation and a Western audience. And conversely, a Western audience and great Western collectors or American curators or whatever also deserve to have terrific Chinese contemporary art here.
Has the art market has been hard hit after the financial crisis in 2008? How are the sales? Did you have a hard time through that? Well,
it was sort of odd because I opened my gallery at the end of 2007, and then in 2008 you did have the world collapse in a way, and I remember being in China, in Beijing specifically, when the first kind of huge bad things happened. I don't know, maybe it was May 2008, and immediately the Chinese people that I was with recognized that this is going to be a global problem. And it did. It was a huge problem. But for me, it absolutely, I've got to say, it probably only helped. In the Chinese art market, there was a lot of speculation that was totally out of control. And by the situation, from the situation in the markets in 2008, and some people don't know this, but it caused a big correction for many artists in China, where the prices that they had were no longer stable, and people weren't going to spend money. They weren't going to spend $20, $40, $60, $100,000 on artwork that wasn't that was purely speculative, that could have no value, and what happened was, I think that was partially responsible for a lot of the other galleries that represented Chinese artists or focused on Chinese art closing around New York. Some of them, at least, sold art at these speculative high prices. When the economy collapsed, so did those markets. The value of a lot of that art is 50% or more, or less, right? 50% less than what these people bought it for. Often is substantially worse than that even, and that's not that doesn't help build a gallery, and that's not the recipe for a successful gallery.
And you lasted. What's your secret?
And I didn't do that. I researched everything, and I talked to everyone, and I read everything, and I visited all the artists, and I looked closely at the market. So for me, the market collapsing in a way helped. I liked this correction. It brought a lot of the market in China back to earth.
Took out your competition too.
Yeah, they right. Okay.
He's got a very meticulous drive and a very detailed drive, and it's somewhat natural. I've been a friend of his for a long time, so I've seen him kind of have just focuses in a small thing that's going on in the here and now that may be something like food, doing something at the apartment, and I've seen him on larger projects, but very meticulous, very detailed, very see through what you're doing.
Let's say, what would you say to a collector that walks in that doesn't really know much about Chinese art, contemporary art, maybe have some misconceptions? How would you sum up what they can expect when they come to your gallery? Well, when they go to a wider aspect, even they go to China, what would you tell them what you can expect when you look at Chinese contemporary art?
Well, I think you can expect something that's powerful, that's different, that's unique, that's done on with the highest level of talent and the most precision, with often just brilliantly executed artwork. And that's what I would say to expect. And you can also sometimes expect to be shocked, because sometimes these Chinese artists can do pretty shocking things.
So from an art lover to a gallery owner, and you have dealt with, over the past 6 years, dealt with so many Chinese artists and collectors, what would you say how you have grown professionally and personally in the past few years?
I've grown substantially. I really have. Professionally, anyone in this business, any gallerist that's telling the truth, will tell you that there's unlimited amount to learn. So you learn all the time. You'll never master every aspect of the art world, and whether it's learning on the job, through experiences, through reading, through classes, I learn all the time, and it's great, because I really feel like, and it's true, that I become better and better and better at this, and as I become better, it's terrific for everyone that I do business with. I've changed a lot professionally since I first opened. Personally, I'd say personally I probably haven't changed that much. That's a more difficult question for me to answer, except that I had much more time to myself personally before I opened a gallery than I do now.
How about your taste in art? Has your taste evolved?
Yeah, I think I think just like grasping the business, one's palette continuously evolves, and mine has too.
The Lou Bolin series in New York, and then the Lou Bolin Harper Bazaar. Lou Bolin came here and painted himself into World Trade Center, area, painted himself into the Bull on Wall Street. Then Harper Bazaar called and said, largest gallery, largest clothing designers in Europe want to do a joint project, what kind of flattery can you get about what you have established and the artists that you're establishing, but that some of the greatest known artists in any media in clothing, one of the most popular and known medias around the world, are saying one of your top artists and what you're exposing us to is a really beautiful idea. There's a lot, we want to literally be a part of it. So I look at projects like that, that are almost born out of relationships that are created between the artists, being in New York and being with Eli, and Eli's network and exposure to, like in that case, Western Europe, for instance. There's no way that connection would have been made without this place as a pivot. So I look forward to more, I think, projects between, kind of east-west, focused on an idea from more Beijing artists, maybe cultivated with ideas after doing shows in New York, and then a design or installation even. I could see maybe some sort of look at the Calder installations. I mean, he talks about the Calder lithographs he has here. Look at the Calder installations in public parks. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if one of these artists had a public work in a U.S. square of a city or town at some point? I don't think any of that is unreasonable. So.
What is your vision for your gallery in the future? What are the things you want to do in the future that you haven't been able to do?
Well, look, my goal in life is to be the very best. So it's the same as in my career. I mean, I want to be the best, not just Chinese gallery in the country. I think I'm already there. I want to be the best gallery in the country, and that's my goal. And if I ever stop growing on a yearly basis, then I won't do this anymore. But I will. I don't see that happening, and every year I climb closer towards my goal.